welcome to Let's Talk Nation. I'm your man, Rod Love, and sitting directly to my left is none other than the General Attorney Greg Jackson.
Once again, it's on, Brother Love. You know how we get this thing started every week, man. How's this weekend for you?
Man, this weekend was great. This weekend was a prelude to today.
What happened today?
Today, my baby girl actually turned 18. I don't have any more minors in my...
That's the youngest, huh?
That's the youngest.
Oh, man.
So man, it's a great weekend, man. Woo! Now I got all adults up in my house. But you know, like my mom used to tell me, Greg,
What's that?
hey, if I have to get you, you're going to have to come on over here and roll me on over to you.
Yeah, I know that's right. So,
Yeah. But what about your weekend, man?
No, listen, man, let me say happy birthday to Miss Reagan real quick. So happy birthday, Miss Reagan. Happy 18th birthday. Life is about to get a whole lot more interesting because legally, she's on her own. But we all know that kids remain our kids for the rest of their life. So don't think that has changed.
Interesting you say that.
Okay, what happened?
Because I've been saying that leading up to this point. When our children turn 18, and you hit it right on the head, Brother Jackson, hey man, the decisions that they make have, man, more extreme consequences, as well as decisions they make that will reward them as well.
That's a true statement. And I'm gonna tell you this. So, just from a legal perspective. So when we talk about legal perspective, this is what makes it a little bit scary for the newly anointed adults, the 8-year-olds. Things happen. It's no longer call your mom and your dad to address certain things. So let's say, for instance, just a worst case scenario. Let's say, for instance, a 17-year-old or a 6-year-old is involved in an accident. I can't put their name in a complaint. If you're going to sue, you have to put the parent's name as the guardian and parent of whomever it is. Now
they put their name in.
Now it's time where you are solely responsible or wholly responsible for anything that you do. That's a bad thing. But then the good thing too is that you can start making decisions, and hopefully with the right guidance from parents. I heard that you and Doc Polite did a show, the sit down, just before we got here. The difference between a dad and a father.
Yes.
And this is one of those times when, and I think I was on a conference call, so I didn't hear it, but I think I know the answer to this. This is where dads step in and continue to give guidance to your kids, to where even though they are technically adults, we're still giving them the guidance and the direction that they need in order to make good decisions to be viable citizens in these United States. So.
Greg, you hit the nail on the head. And Doc, I know you right there by that button, man. Buzz on in here real quick, man, if you would. Because, Greg, you hit it right on the head. Greg, do you think conversations are being had with young people that are about to turn 18 about the legality of it?
No, not at all. Absolutely not.
But do you think it should be?
Absolutely, yes. Because like I said, I don't think that young people understand that the minute you turn 17, a literal switch flips, and you are now an adult and responsible for all of your actions. The minute and 18 does not make you grown.
You're right.
Listen, 21 does not make you grown. But at 18, the law says that flip switches, and it's all on you now.
In the legal term is reach the age of majority. It doesn't mean you're an adult. It's reach the age of majority.
Yeah.
Hey, Doc, isn't that the one piece that we missed with having a conversation earlier on the sit down about the distinction between being a father and being a daddy, and that legal aspect? Great. Nobody had that conversation with me, and I really, I'm always telling my kids, make wise decisions.
Yeah.
Make wise decisions.
Yeah.
But I haven't coined it from the perspective of the world has changed for you when you become an adult.
It's absolutely true. And Doc, I mean, you could probably attest to this also, but, as a dad, that guidance to the children does not end when they reach the age of majority and are years past the age of majority. Am I right?
And I'm glad you said that, because what we don't understand in our community, we got to change that dynamic, because I see so many parents still trying to interfere in their kids' life. The child 45 and the mamas and dad is still trying to control them. That's not how that goes. you got to transition.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
transition that relationship. So I know how it benefited me. What I learned. Do you want dad's help? You want my feedback?
There you go.
If they say no, I shut my mouth. Why?
Yeah.
Because I don't have to live with the consequences
Yeah.
of their decision.
That's right. That's right. That's
Hey,
right.
hey.
But you make yourself available.
You're right.
To where
Yeah.
if they do need that guidance and that wisdom that has been garnered over the years from making good and bad decisions. Because listen, the thing
Right.
about being an adult that we all have to be willing to embrace is that it's not the good decisions or only the good decisions that we've made that we've grown from. It's also the bad
bad ones.
decisions that we have grown from and been able to bounce back from. Now, I'm not saying crazy stuff where you chop somebody's head off and you go in. I mean, but like we're here, and the things that we learn from the most are the mistakes that we make.
You know, it's
Yeah,
that
and-
deal where you don't know how hot that frying pan is
Until you touch.
until your mom or your dad done told you several times, don't touch that.
Yeah.
Don't touch that. It's hot. But you got to test
And
it for yourself.
the fact is that it used to be a time where, out of courtesy, like law enforcement would kind of talk to, but not anymore. Now they tell you no, I won't tell you anything about the case. And the same thing with medical. You cannot. The minute you turn 18, boom.
Hey, what
HIPAA
is
law
Doc talking
kick
HIPAA? Doc talking, you talking HIPAA around here.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
They
absolutely
can't
right.
tell you nothing. They can't even
That's
tell
right.
you the temperature.
Hey,
Yeah,
Doc,
I got
matter
it.
of fact, here go my perfect segue. Appreciate you buzzing on in, but I'm going to defer to the general. Can you let people know who they tuned in to tonight?
Listen, right now, if you're hearing these two voices, you're tuned in to two of the most influential voices in Central Florida on this Monday night podcast. Brother Love and Greg Jackson, the dynamic duo guaranteed to raise your IQ 10 to 15 points. And on some nights, Brother Love, we take it up to 25 or 30. If you want to be a part of the night's conversation, all you got to do is hit 321-483-7002 to talk to two of the most influential voices in Central Florida, Brother Love and Greg Jackson, the dynamic duo. Brother Love, let's get it on.
And then speaking about getting it on, man, and I mean, and this is no, I'm not even going to use this as a pun. Greg,
Yeah,
there's some things taking place, man, on the West Coast.
yeah,
That,
yeah. Yeah.
man, it's affecting people, man. I mean, just really, I don't know how many people have lost their life to this fire.
Well, the known number right now is 24.
Man,
But what I suspect is that as the dust clears, as things start to calm a little bit, that number is going to go up. I'm not going to say significantly because I hope it's not significantly, but I'm guessing that number is going to go up. The other thing too, though, Brother Love, is that they are now saying that in that area that they should expect hurricane force winds. At one point in time last week, they were saying that the gusts of wind were getting up to 90 miles per hour.
carrying those ambers, Greg, just the
Miles.
amber, yeah, and starting other fires.
Yeah, yeah. And so, one of the things, Brother Love, and what we got to talk about on this is that, some people are saying, this could have been avoided. That there were things that should have been or could have been in place to where when these fires started, they could have been better prepared. And what people need to understand is that wildfires are not unknown things to people in California. As a matter of fact, they have something called wildfire season when the brush starts to dry, especially in the winter months. That there is a higher likelihood of there to be wildfires, or what we call here in Florida brush fires, and that the state of California, its elected officials, should have known and done a better job to be prepared for this wildfire season.
But Greg, I'd be, if I'm a resident that was affected by these wildfires, man, I'm beyond pissed because you done lost everything. And then you and I, we have this conversation about holding people accountable.
Yeah.
And man, who do you hold accountable for this? I mean, you wait for another election cycle? What about the fact that, Greg, we're hearing reports now that fire hydrants didn't even have water?
Listen, fire hydrants didn't have water, reservoirs didn't have water. We're also hearing that the fire chief for LA County is saying that she was not provided with the resources in order to be prepared for this wildfire season. Right now, we're hearing that the fire department in that area is operating at below capacity. I think they said they're operating at 52% right now, that they need at least 64 more fire stations in that area. They're talking about the head of the water conservation who gets paid $750,000 per year, did not provide the resources where water could be in strategic places for things like this to happen. Governor Newsom, who wanted to at one time become president, he's basically saying this is a local problem. As the governor of a state, he should not be saying that at this catastrophic time, that it's on the people on the local level. This is something that from the top down, Brother Love, should have been addressed.
Should have been addressed. And I mean, you and I, Greg, we've always talked about accountability. But now that you talk about Governor Newsom,
Yeah.
did you see the piece where he was at one of the sites? One of the residents came up to him. He said he was on the phone with the. You saw that?
Yeah.
On the phone with the president.
Yeah. And
And
the
then-
lady said, "Let me hear you."
Yeah, let me put it on speakerphone. Can I hear?
Oh, he's not picking up now.
Man, come on.
Come on now.
Come on, man. This is man.
Yeah, I mean, so but here's the other thing too. It's been said, let me put it like that, that the Biden-Harris administration has some responsibility for these fires, and let me tell you why. They're saying that that there was a guy who was going around LA County with a blowtorch, lighting fires to old Christmas trees. I guess as a way of disposing of the Christmas trees by burning them. This person who was doing this was an illegal immigrant in the United States, and we know that that LA County is a sanctuary city.
Yeah.
So they're saying that this guy was here illegally, and he was the one that was going around setting fires to old Christmas trees, and that it's the embers from these old Christmas trees that started this fire. Now, if this is true, Brother Love, there's going to be some additional criticisms about what's taking place at the border, about the immigration policy, because this is something that potentially could have been avoided if that person was not allowed to remain in this country.
And you know what, Greg? I don't want to play Monday morning. What do they call it? Monday morning quarterback.
Yeah.
But man, when you start, because they haven't even gotten to the point to where they do a post-op of what could we have done better? Where were some of our weaknesses? What did we do well? This is taking place in real time now, realizing that you run to a hydrant to get water and it's none there. The reservoirs.
There's no need to Monday morning quarterback because that's exactly what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
The fire chief has come out and said these things. The governor of California has acknowledged these things. The mayor of LA County, who was in Gambia or Ghana at the time that this happened, did not think enough of her people to come back immediately when these fires started, has acknowledged these things.
Compounded on the top of that.
So there's no need to even start to try to figure out how it started, where it started, and then to go on top of that, this is wildfire season in California. They know the time period when these, just like we know hurricane season, Brother Love.
You're right.
They know that there's a time period when these things are going to happen.
But think about those insurance companies that pulled out the season before the wildfires,
Yeah.
and a lot of those homes
Yeah.
were uninsured. And then you have some of those individuals that found some degree of coverage, and like the woman that was on lost everything, and she was talking about the fact that she was able to get $500,000 coverage, and the low end of those homes in that area was $1.7 million.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna tell you, and so for the people out there, and I know that they're asking, well, what could have been done? From a prevention standpoint could have been done. Listen, there's a such thing as controlled burns. There's a such thing as allowing there to be moisture, water let loose in certain areas so that you don't get the dry brush. As a matter of fact, I believe I heard that the president or the prime minister of Finland basically said, hey, listen, we have trees in our country that are more flammable or more prone to catch fire than the trees that you all have, and we don't have these issues because they take steps to prevent these dry areas or these dry spells from happening, to where when there's a small spark, it grows into these fires. So there are things in place. As a matter of fact, last week I was driving home, and in the city of Apopka, there was smoke going down Welch Road. You know Welch Road.
Yeah.
The reason being, they're doing a controlled burn.
burn.
They understand that during this time period when the weather's cold, the leaves start to dry out, there's not a lot of rain that's taking place, that you have to take steps in order to prevent there being a compilation of brush and debris that if a small spark catches onto it, it can cause catastrophic results.
The sad part about it, Greg, and I'll say this. My heart goes out to those people that have been affected by this.
Absolutely.
But man, I don't think being in their shoes, I'm gonna be consoled in any way.
No.
When
No.
you can't hold anybody accountable. You can't hold government accountable. And then people tell you, okay, wait till the next election cycle. Man, come on.
Listen, if Gavin Newsom was the prime minister of Japan right now, you know, in Japan, if they do something wrong, they resign and they go to jail.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I think that when you have situations like this, when the government is blatantly, in my opinion, is blatantly negligent in doing its duties to keep their communities or their state safe, then there should be some action or recourse that citizens can take. Now remember, Gavin Newsom is also the governor who was up for a recall election.
You're right. You're right.
And the people in California, you know, for whatever reason, allowed this guy to come back, even when he was doing such a horrible job, because I think they had the issues with the water, as well as the taxes and everything else that's going wrong in California. More people are leaving California than that are coming to California. That should be a sign of indication. Matter of fact, they're probably going to lose even more delegates, which will affect the number of votes they get for the electoral college in California because of poor leadership, where people are leaving that state.
Well, they're getting hit really bad when you look at corporations saying California is not for me and moving the operations.
Yeah.
Greg, one other note on this topic, man, and then we can kind of navigate on. But Greg, you looking at what's taking place as a result of these wildfires. I'm a conservative. Let me just say that first.
Yeah.
But I look at the amount of aid that we have given to Ukraine, and you look at other countries, but I'm, particularly, and I understand the war that's taking place over there. When you look at what we do for people at home, there's no comparison.
I mean, listen, you don't want to get me started on what is done for other countries versus what is done for certain communities in the United States. We have sorely underserved communities. I mean, if we look at Baltimore, we look at Chicago, we look at Memphis, we look at a number of different areas. And we have to say that there are monies that could be put into those communities that will help those communities from the standpoint of programs, of sustainability, in those communities. That's not happening. And there is a lot of money that goes towards other issues and other concerns that is missed and that is being overlooked in the Black or underserved community. The fact that they gave undocumented individuals, illegal aliens, whatever you want to call it, illegal immigrants in this country, in New York alone, $50 some odd million for housing.
Chicago, $4,200 a month.
Yeah, I mean, listen. Think about what families in underserved areas could do if they were given these types of resources. But here's the problem, Brother Love. In the Black community, and this is further down the list. We'll talk about this in more detail, because this is always a time for us to talk about sustainability in the Black community. But in the Black community, if we put money into the Black community, how long does it stay there? What are we doing in the Black community when resources are provided in order to make sure that those resources stay in our community? And that's a conversation we've had time and time again.
And you know what? It just makes sense when we talk about, when you say, how long does that money stay there?
Yeah.
Greg, you go to address the problem, and I'm going to talk about, and just be real quick, the APOCA Task Force, and then the Orange County Citizen Safety Task Force. You see that you make inroads with turning the corner on some of these issues. And when I say make some inroads, I'm talking about measuring what you do. So you have to benchmark it first. But when you see you're making some progress, that's not the time to cut off the money.
Right.
And that's what we see happen.
Right. But listen, I'll even say, even without relying on government, or even without government doing what it should do in helping communities, the Black community should understand that we have a rich history of being able to do for ourselves. And if we go back and we look at, and we talked about this before, Black Wall Street, if we look at African-American communities before segregation, we were self-sustaining in our own communities, had our own drugstores, our own grocery stores, our own movie theaters, our own pharmacies, our own property, all our own banks. And once integration hit, we forgot that we were a self-sustaining community in and of ourselves. And so now, whenever you have monies that come into the Black community, we are in such a rush and in a hurry to put it in other communities until we can't sustain businesses in the African-American community.
Great. I wasn't going to deviate, but I got to right now.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw where there's going to be a special session called for the state of Florida legislature. It was announced today.
Okay.
That special session is going to be called to prepare Florida to be positioned because there's the anticipation that when President Trump takes his oath of office, that he's going to step forward with some immediate legislation that's going to impact undocumented immigrants in this country.
Okay.
And so, just to your point, that there's going to be a special session to whatever the law that they put in place to complement what's going to take place at the federal level. Here's the one thing that came to mind, and I said, man, I hope specifically our Black elected officials don't get distracted with jumping up to fight about something that we've been talking about for years, and that is to address Border Patrol. Let's address some of these issues that we're talking about now. Sustainability in these communities that need all the help in the world.
Yeah.
Don't get distracted by talking about that when you got this in front of you.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Well, let's look, as we talk about community, sustaining communities, we have a fantastic day that's getting ready to come up.
Yes.
One that commemorates the life and memory of a great man in the history of the United States. And we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the other contributors to the rights and civil rights movement. But I believe we have someone who is going to be joining us here. He's going to be talking to us about the MLK luncheon that's going to be taking place here in Orlando, Florida. So, Doc Polite, if we have our special guest who's joining us tonight, man, if he wants to come in, we can go ahead and get this thing started.
All righty, he's coming right.
All righty.
Brother Davis, what's going on, man?
Good evening, gentlemen.
How's
It's
it
so good
going?
to see you. It's truly an honor to be here with you
man.
again.
Good to see you too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So listen, as always, I gotta welcome you in the name of the Black and Gold. Ain't no shame in my game. They all know it now.
Hey,
they
there
all
you go.
know it.
There you go.
Listen, it is what it is.
Yes. Thank you, brothers.
Brother Davis, man, good seeing you, man.
Absolutely. And, the conversation that you're having there is just quite compelling, and there's so much to unpack there. It really, really is. And I think that what we have coming up in terms of Dr. King's celebrating all of his contributions ties right into how we can uplift the community, right? And which is what we're trying to do here. And so, as you know, the brothers are engaged and have several activities coming up this week. The first one being the MLK Forum at FAMU on Thursday, 7 to 8:30 p.m. And that forum will be hosted by our own brother, Jalen Christie. Mm-hmm. And we have 5 great panelists that he'll be speaking with. And this is really around trying to identify potential solutions. We want people to leave the forum with ideas and things that they can do to go and really make an impact. Not just come out and listen to each other, but listen to each other in a way that we can come up with solutions that we can go back to our communities and implement. So,
Brother Davis, let me ask you this, because you and Brother Jackson, y'all skirted around it, the Black and Gold and the brothers. Man, come on, y'all tell folk about this great organization that I'm not a part of, but I still think it's great. Come on, Greg, tell people about that organization.
I mean, listen, I'm gonna let Brother Davis go ahead and Alex, because they hear me say it every time.
Absolutely. It is Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity, Delta Phi Lambda chapter here in Orlando. 1906, we started way back then, and we've been going ever since, trying to make a real improvement in our communities. And so we've been here as a part of partnering with the Mayor's MLK Commission and the Hankins Johnson Education Foundation to be a part of the MLK series of events that happens every year here in Orlando, a 39th year partnering with them. Wow. And so, as I said, on Thursday, we have the forum hosting. On Friday is the luncheon. Really excited about the luncheon this year. We have our good brother, Mark Morial, as our keynote speaker. We will be recognizing 15 individuals, 11 students who will receive $31,000 in scholarship money. Nice. And then we'll be recognizing 5 community leaders for all of the work that they're doing, champions in our community who are really making a difference and making an impact in the Orlando area.
So now, real quick, Brother Davis, let's take a step back and let's talk a little bit about the forum. What do folks need to do if they want to attend that forum? Right.
So you need to show up at FAMU. Like I said, be there before 7 p.m. because we kick off right on time at 7 p.m. And that's on FAMU Law Drive Lane. I think it's 201. So you can just show up there and come on and be a part of the activity. It's right there at the law school.
And with regards to the luncheon, you mentioned that there are going to be 11 students that are recognized scholarship money that are given.
Yes.
I think that scholarship money is actually a derivative of another activity.
Yes,
that the
it
brothers
is.
Of Alpha Phi Alpha were actually a part of. What? It slips my mind, Brother Davis. What was that exactly?
Yes. So yes, the MLK luncheon is a fundraiser to fund those scholarships. You know, so we need people to support our luncheon, come out and be a part of that. I'll be honest with you, we are at capacity, but there is a few seats left, and so you can reach out and call us and get on our wait list, if you will. However, there's an exception for you, brothers. So
Well said.
there's an exception for you, brothers. I have a couple of seats reserved for you if you're available. But for others, we don't have a lot of seats left. So feel free to reach out, and you can call us at 321-754-8649 or 407-453-4279. And we will get you on our wait list and look forward to you being there. Now, the other piece of that is, right, if you can't get into the luncheon on Friday, there's the opportunity to go to our website, right?
Wow.
HankinsJohnson.org, and make a contribution to help these kids stay in school. It is so critical that we help the kids get through school. I had a conversation with several students who we awarded scholarships to 2 years ago, and I just wanted to get a feel for what they're experiencing and what it's like in college. And it's tough, especially when you got to think about the dollars, right?
That's right.
So the one young lady that I spoke with said it's just so expensive to live on campus, you know, to be in college. And so anything that we can do to remove that barrier for these kids, I think is a win-win for all of our communities.
So now let me ask this question, Brother Davis, and don't be shy in the response. But has Let's Talk Nation contributed to the scholarship fund just yet?
Let's Talk Nation has contributed to the scholarship fund this year, but we would
Well, you're
certainly
supposed to say no, because then I was going to offer some more money, Brother Davis. Let's try this one more time.
All right.
Let's try this one more time. Listen, don't count everything we do. We count right now. So, Brother Davis, you were just talking about if people want to come and they want to donate monies, go to the website. Has Let's Talk Nation contributed to that fund just yet?
Let's Talk Nation has not contributed to our scholarship fund this year.
We got to change that, Brother Davis.
You know, brother, you are on top of it. I appreciate it. Because it is a brand new year. It is a brand new year. So
Hey, he coming out the gate firing.
It is time. It is time.
Listen, do me a favor. Shoot me a text. Shoot me a
Okay.
text, and I'll make sure the Let's Talk Nation changes that. If not tonight, first thing in the morning.
I greatly appreciate that, brothers. And you know, for all of your audience members out there, really think about supporting the kids. You know, it really makes a difference. And if you sit down and talk with some of the college students, you'll find out that it's a real burden for them.
Boy. Hey, Brother David, before we let you go,
Right.
I believe, you know, because I engage with the different fraternities and sororities in our city. And so I have an idea about what drives them. But, man, every time we see you, man, brother, you out there doing some great work. So I want to put you on the spot and just ask you this question, and I want to ask it to you out of love and humbleness. But what drives you to do the things that you're doing, man, in the community? When I hear you talk about the fraternity, those kids, scholarships, what drives you?
Right. So what really drives me is it's my passion. You know, I've spent my entire adult life mentoring youth and working with youth through the fraternity. And I'll be honest, the fraternity provided a framework or a platform, if you will, for me to be able to engage and just go forward, you know, and really be a part of trying to develop our youth and make our communities better. But it's really a passion for me. And I can see the result, right? I can see the impact that we're making by working with these young people. So I'm driven by that.
Man,
Outstanding.
thank you for your service.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, Brother Davis, we're going to let you get back to the rest of your day, man. But as always, it's great to see you. But listen, keep doing the great work. You know, Delta Tau Lambda, I paid my dues this year. So just know that's done. But listen, I am very proud of the work that the brothers are doing in this area. Very proud to say that I'm a member, not just of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, but also of Delta Tau Lambda for the great work that the fraternity is doing. So,
Thank you, Brother Davis.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Keep up the good work, brothers.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Thanks a lot. Great brother's always on point, man. And your fraternity be representing, brother.
Yeah, listen, man, it was not a hard decision for me 30 years ago this year.
Wow. Congrats.
Yeah, April of this year will make 30 years that I've been a brother of Alpha Phi Alpha. That's a long time. I barely have known my wife longer than I have been a member of Alpha Phi Alpha. But that aside, just coming up, on the campus, coming up in the community, watching the great work of Alpha Phi Alpha. And listen, and you said it. The fraternities in this area are doing great work. The sororities in this area are doing great work. You don't go wrong if you affiliate yourself with any of these fraternities and sororities. Just for me, it was Alpha Phi Alpha that just stuck in my heart, and why I became a brother Alpha Alpha. And like I said, I'm very proud of the work that the brothers do. I try to make sure that I support as much as I can, and it's because of these efforts here. So.
Well, I tell you what, Greg, what I listened to when we had Brother Davis on here, man, I had to ask that question because I was listening to his heart, and he basically said the fraternity provided the platform for him to live his passion and work with young people. So.
Absolutely. But listen, one of the things that a lot of people know, but some people may forget, is that one of the preeminent brothers of Alpha Phi Alpha was, and in my mind is, Martin Luther King Jr., who was a civil rights advocate. He gave his life, for the civil rights cause in a nonviolent form of protest in order to bring about the atrocities that the African Americans were facing here in this country. But Brother Love, MLK Day also, I believe, is a day to remember and commemorate all of the other individuals whose lives were cut short or who lost their lives in the fight for civil rights here in this country. And so right now, Brother Love, in addition to, Martin Luther King Jr. And MLK Day, I think that it is also appropriate if we just kind of go through the list and talk about some of the other people who have lost their lives as a part of the civil rights movement. And we're not going to start where people think we're going to start. We're going to start with probably one of the first individuals who lost their lives as a part of the civil rights movement before it was technically known as the civil rights movement.
So this is going to throw everybody, Greg, but talk to me about Abraham.
Abraham Lincoln, Brother Love. We believe that Abraham Lincoln was one of the first individuals whose lives was lost because of a fight due to human injustices. The Emancipation Proclamation, and I've said this time and time again, that the Emancipation Proclamation did not free slaves in the United States. It freed the slaves in the states that had left the Union. But his efforts is what led to the amendment for slavery to be abolished. And so Abraham Lincoln, who was shot and killed in 1864, was probably one of the first civil rights activists on record who lost their lives for the fight for the rights of all men to be and treated equally.
So tell me about State Senator John Stevens.
So John Stevens, this is 1913. John Stevens was a state senator who also fought to assist freed slaves at a time that was somewhat, it was about 50 years after slavery, but even 50 years after slavery, there were individuals who had come from that institution, who had come out from under slavery, although they had kids and probably grandkids by that time, who did not know that system as intimately as they did. So he assisted, freed slaves, and he lost his life in 1913 because of his efforts to help free slaves.
Greg, something, when we have conversation and we talk about and celebrate MLK Day, it all revolves around the Black heritage aspect.
Yeah.
And and you and I, we have these conversations that if we depended solely on Black folk when we talk about liberation, when we talk about freedom, when we talk about advancement, I don't know that we'd be that further along if we didn't have the inclusion of everybody.
Yeah.
And so with that, Greg, tell me about George Lee as it relates to civil rights.
George Lee was an American civil rights leader. He was also a minister. Now, I do believe that he was African American, but the two first ones that we mentioned, Abraham Lincoln, Senator Smith, they were
Caucasians, African American, yeah.
but you know, in addition to that, you have Thomas Hensey Brewer, who lost his life in 1956. He was a co-founder of one of the chapters of the NAACP. The NAACP welcomed members who were of all hues, who believed in the advancement of colored people. That's what the CP stands for, or of black folks. And so he was another one that lost his
Well,
life.
Greg, 1955, you're talking about Lamar Smith, civil rights leader, farmer,
Yeah.
and veteran.
That's right. That's right. And if we're talking about veteran, he was probably a veteran of the Civil War at that particular time, or something like that. 55. He may have been World War I or World War II. Yeah. So yeah, but listen, he was a veteran, fought for this country, but then in fighting for the rights of other individuals, lost his life.
Sacrificed
His life. Now, some that are of interest, because there are a lot of folks on this list, but let's talk about James Chaney, Andrew Goodman, and Michael Schwerin. Now, Michael Schwerin, Mr. Goodman and Mr. Chaney, Brother Love, these were three young men, one African-American male, two Jewish men. All right, that lets you know the diversity of the civil rights movement, because it wasn't just the older generation that was fighting for the rights or looking to bring about an understanding and the knowledge of what was taking place in areas where blacks were being kept from voting. But these were young people who were in college. They were actually members of CORE, which was the Congress of Racial Equality, CORE. And I don't know if you remember the movie Mississippi Burning.
Yeah.
But these three young men were actually in Philadelphia, Mississippi. They had just left an event where they were trying to promote black folks or African Americans voting and things of that nature. And as they were driving down the street, I think they were actually pulled over, what appeared to be pulled over by police officers. They thought they were being pulled over by police officers. Happened to be back in that time. I mean, people talk about police officers now, Brother Love, but back then, police officers pull you over. They were probably members of the Klan, which unfortunately these three young men come to find out that they were being pulled over by law enforcement who were involved with the Klan, and they were murdered, Brother Love, because they were young people fighting for the equality of African Americans here in this country.
Great. And you remember that documentary was an education for the country.
Yeah, absolutely.
But and let me hit you with this, Greg.
Yeah.
When we talk about there's no substitute for doing the right thing.
Yeah.
We often don't come back and say there is oftentimes the sacrifice for doing the right thing.
There is.
And you got to be ready for it.
You got to be ready for it. Some other folks that were ready for that sacrifice, Brother Love, those three young men, amongst the other names. You also had James Reed, who was killed in 1965. You also have Viola Lizotte.
Go into that, help me with that, Greg. I saw that
Viola
name.
Lizotte was, from what I can tell, documented, the only white female who was murdered in her efforts to assist in the civil rights movement. So this was a white female who was assisting African Americans and black folks with being registered to vote, helping to get the word out about the atrocities that African Americans were facing in this country. And you guessed it again, the Ku Klux Klan was responsible for the death of this woman who was working only to help to improve the life and the situations of African Americans in this country. So now, Brother, we've talked about white men, we've talked about young white men, Jewish men, we've talked about African American men. You now have a white female who's a part of this list of individuals whose lives were taken because they were fighting for the rights of African Americans here in this country. Some of the names that some folks may recognize, Malcolm X, killed in 1965. Now, his was somewhat interesting because remember, Malcolm X was killed, it wasn't the Apollo Theater, but it was somewhere in that area in New York where he was killed. And he was actually killed by by an African American, by a black guy. But what they're saying is that black guy was a part of a conspiracy by the U.S. government to murder Malcolm X. Now, a lot of these murders that we see here, some of them have been attributed to government conspiracy. And if you look, Brother Love, when we start talking about these murders, we're talking about 1955 to 1965, that there were a number of individuals who were murdered that were considered to be civil rights activists, but I dare to say that there were some individuals who we would never know their names who were also killed and murdered. I mean, think about Emmett Till during this time period. He was murdered during that time. There were other individuals who were murdered either because of the color of their skin or for the fight for civil rights of African Americans.
When I see these dates on here, Greg, when I see the 1955 and it goes all the way to 67, 69, while these dates will probably be so far removed from my children's mind.
Yeah.
And you're younger than me, but when I see these dates, man, Greg, it is real scary to look at this and think that we were still addressing and dealing with the level of racism
in the 20th century.
Yes,
in the 20th century. Barnard Dahmer, another white male who was assisted with the civil rights efforts. We talk about Robert Spike. He was an American civil rights activist. He was a black gentleman. Ernest Jackson. He was actually the American NAACP chapter treasurer at the time that he was murdered. We also had, I think I mentioned Herbert Lee. The thing about Herbert Lee that was kind of interesting to me is that William Lewis Moore, who was murdered in 1963, actually witnessed the murder of Herbert Lee and went and spoke to the authorities about that murder. And lo and behold, 2 years later, he was murdered. And so that's what I was saying. Some of these murders appear to have been a part of a conspiracy against African Americans at that time who were fighting for civil rights. So we get up to that point, and the reason why I wanted to build up to that, but look at the number of people who were murdered that when Martin Luther King came about, these were the things that he saw and that he had to address, knowing. Because think about it, Brother Love, at this time he knew, as well as a lot of other individuals that were part of the movement, but they knew at that time that you speaking out was a target. You were a target. You speaking out to say that black people deserve the right to vote, black people deserve to have the same or go to the same schools. It's not about the color of your skin, but the content of your character. He knew that if he stood up and he said these things, that there was a possibility that he would lose his life, and yet and still he stood up and was very vocal about moving forward with the movement. And not only that, his nonviolent movement taken from Mahatma Gandhi and doing things in a nonviolent fashion is what many people credited or have credited with getting the world's attention about what was taking place to Black Americans, the African Americans here in this country. When you saw people who were peacefully walking down the street having dogs sicked on, when you had people who were peacefully sitting in protest being beat and hit with bats, when you saw people who were peacefully protesting who were having water hose turned on them, the world looked at that and they looked at the United States and said, there's a real problem in that country because all they're doing is peaceably asking to be treated with dignity and respect.
And they trained individuals back then about how to demonstrate and through nonviolence.
Yeah.
You had, Greg, you had to get your mind right.
Well, now, remember now, Dr. Martin Luther King's movement did that.
And then the polar opposite of that, as you well know, was the Malcolm X side.
Listen, I mean, you had the Nation of Islam that was coming, and it was like an eye for an eye, two for the two.
Yeah.
So listen, you had competing movements that were trying to address an atrocity here in this country. But both, I mean, if we look, whether we look at Malcolm X or Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. or the other individuals who were part of this movement, they knew that being a part of this movement potentially meant that they could lose their lives.
You're right. And you know, Greg, we often speak about the fact that if you look at a Malcolm X, if you look at an MLK, these are individuals that knew what they were advocating for, they would never ever benefit from.
Yeah.
They did it in service to others, knowing that the future would benefit from this, all the while knowing, just like you framed this up, they knew they were on the radar.
Yeah. Medgar Evers.
Yeah.
Who was the husband and wife couple here in Florida? Oh man, they did a movie about him. We went to the premiere.
Oh, what was that, Greg?
Oh man, it'll come to me. I can't think of that name. Or someone in Let's Talk Nation, because we got the smartest podcast audience around. If someone can just remind us, I mean, you just remind us of who it was. Oh man, they did the movie about
Harry T. Moore.
Harry T. Moore, thanks. And it was his wife also, right?
Yeah, the wife
and there's
as well.
a memorial, I think, downtown. Yeah. Did they put that? Was it a memorial in the city of Orlando that recognized his efforts?
Yeah. The other one, Fred Hampton, who was also a part of the other movement. He was a part of the National Black Panther Party, the National Black Panther Movement. who basically were a paramilitary outfit that basically said we're going to protect our communities against anybody, and we're going to use force. We're going to have weapons. We're going to be trained, and we're going to protect our communities. Harry,
Rick, what was the organization that MLK founded? SELC? Was it SELC?
The FOI, which is the Fruit of Islam, but there's another one that once he left the Nation of Islam.
No. Did I say Malcolm?
Yeah,
I meant MLK.
they sell you, not they sell you.
Southern
SCLC.
Something. I know what you're talking about.
SCL, the
Okay,
Southern
that's it.
Christian
Yeah,
Leadership
look at that.
Conference.
Look at that. Doc is on it tonight. Hey, Doc know his MLK history. I like that, Doc.
Hey, I was raised on this stuff, man.
Listen, I can tell,
So
bro.
you
I can
know,
tell.
this was what we were taught in my family. And we didn't go to the library,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Well, tell you,
We
Brother
raised on
Davis, and you know, the Alpha organization, man, they're always out in the forefront. We would be remiss if we didn't recognize something that's a little close to us, Greg, and that is the South Apopka Ministerial Alliance, the leadership of Miss Monique Morris, with all the events.
Yeah,
that
the MLK parade that's going to be taking
Yes.
place. The various communities that are, going to be hosting MLK parades or events throughout the, as Brother David said, from Thursday all the way through to Monday.
Yeah.
To commemorate, like we say, MLK. But again, there were a number of individuals involved in the civil rights movement, or who were key or instrumental in bringing forth the atrocities and trying to reverse what was taking place with Black Americans here in this country, who we believe also, are recognized or should be recognized, or efforts should be, taken into consideration in conjunction with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who again, gave his life at a very young age in order to speak out against what was taking place in this country, particularly as related to the treatment of African Americans in this community.
January 20th is going to be a busy day.
It is. Oh, and Brother Love, the last civil rights or the last person to lose their life, from what I can tell, as a part of the civil rights movement was in 1980. A gentleman by the name of Alec Lowenstein, another one of our Jewish brothers, who in 1980 lost his life in his efforts to fight for civil rights here in this country.
Man, it just don't seem so far away.
Yeah, it's not. But listen, man, when these young people talk about all of the atrocities of this country and different things like that, listen, I get it. I understand. I understand that you feel like you're not being given a fair shake. But if you look at what your grandparents' parents went through, and the things that they had to go through, and all of those things, you would be greatly appreciative of where you are today. I think that that this younger generation has forgotten, or don't know, I should say forgotten because they didn't see it. They have no idea what the generations ahead of us and ahead of them had to do in order for us to be in the position that we're in. So it always baffles me, Brother Love, and it always frustrates me and distresses me when I see young people not taking advantage of every opportunity that's given to them, and that they would much rather, in my opinion, that's my opinion, make excuses for not getting out there and fighting and trying harder, because there are people who literally lost their lives.
You're right.
In order for the treatment of African Americans in this country to be what it is today, which is a whole heck of a lot better than what it was in the 1930s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. So
Great. When you frame it up the way that we have, and you put a body of work around this, man, I do think that this is what needs to take place. And maybe, just maybe, a lot of these young folk will listen to this and look at the list of people who sacrificed their life.
yeah. Listen, because I don't see no young people out there willing to give their lives for anything. And these were young people who were willing to give their lives for everybody else, so that the conditions of African Americans could change. That is, man, listen, when we talk about Cheney, when we talk about, Goodman, and when we talk about Schwerner, these were college kids that were out on the road fighting for injustice and lost their lives in that fight. Think about the bombing in Selma, the 4 little girls who lost their lives. Think about all of the people that just lost their lives during that time period. And I think that we need to have more reflection and be more grateful of what we've gone through as a country and where we are right now, and the great efforts that have been made so that we are where we are right now.
So with that being the case, Greg, I would say that the way and what was just discussed frames up this next topic, man, in terms of looking at what laws have been passed and look at what laws that are going into effect. And one of the ones in particular, Greg, and we talked about it last week.
Yeah.
The elimination of citizen review boards.
Yeah, and listen, I don't think that this is a segment to review laws. I think this is a segment to really and truly dive into what we started last week, which is what you're saying, the elimination of these review boards, which in essence, Brother Love, these citizen review boards was kind of the community's way of having some input on how to address bad actors who were a part of law enforcement that were in their communities.
Yeah. But also, Greg, doing that, but also this was a vehicle by which relationships were developed too.
Absolutely. And when we talk about relationships, I mean, no one talks about the relationship between law enforcement and the community as eloquently and as knowledgeably as Dr. Randy B. Nelson. And I mean, I believe our audience deserves, and I would be very interested in hearing, his take on, what this means and how it may affect relationships between law enforcement and community members.
Well, just based on the teachings that he's given us,
Yeah.
right off the top, Greg, it will impact the relationship trust that has been developed in some communities, and in some other communities where the work has not been put in, it's going to be even more so detrimental.
Yeah. And so, some of the communities where you had the citizen review boards, you have places like Miami, Tallahassee, St. Petersburg, Tampa, and even right here in Orlando, it appears that the citizen review boards are going to either be disbanded or the alternative, Brother Love, my understanding is the alternative is that now, as opposed to this being a citizen-driven or community-driven board, that now the agency is going to be the ones who oversee and appoints the individuals to these boards. And who do you think they're going to put in place?
Yeah, but Greg, here's something on that note.
Yeah.
And here's something that we've never seen before. And got to take our hat off to former State Attorney Andrew Bain.
Yeah. Yeah.
You realize that Sheriff Lopez, the Osceola County Sheriff, I believe is the first individual, first sheriff in the state of Florida to ever be placed on the Brady's list.
Yeah. And probably rightfully so.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is, while the CRBs are going, it's going to take efforts like this as they check and balance, because you've never heard of a state attorney that basically said to the sheriff, your conduct was so egregious.
That we can't believe anything. Well, not anything, but
that's what the Brady list means, though.
Yeah, I mean, basically the Brady list is where a law enforcement agency is either investigated or there's some questions about the activities of that agency and how they report back to either the state attorney or to the community.
And the word that keeps sticking out to me when you talk about the Brady list is truthfulness.
Yeah. And, for those who don't remember, don't recall, and I forget the young lady's name who was murdered, but apparently her body was found in the woods. The Sheriff Lopez, apparently took a photograph of the body and, of all things, put it on his social media page, which I think is very distasteful. It's also very insensitive to the family as well as to the community. But then, and put that on his page, he then lied and said that it was not a picture of her, it was a picture of something else. He blatantly lied.
And didn't he do that? And also they investigated themselves. His agency investigated him.
Yeah.
How does that work?
It shouldn't work like that. And so, yeah, I think that, former state attorney Andrew Bain did the right thing. I know that Lopez basically said that this was a part of political retribution, but I think that it was very clear what Sheriff Lopez did. I mean, everybody saw it. So this was not political retribution. This was holding you as an agency that has to be checked, because we can't believe your word. If you lie about something that simple, what else are you not telling us the truth about?
Greg, I got to make you shift gears, man, because I do want to know about some of the other laws that took effect, and one of them in particular. Greg, what's your thoughts about the HOA?
But now this law here just basically talks about the fact that that law enforcement cars can be parked in the driveways by HOAs, because typically HOAs say that you can't park a vehicle
Work
in your
vehicle,
driveway.
yeah.
So now they're saying, look, y'all a bit ridiculous on this. Law enforcement can park there. And listen, for some communities, it is helpful. It is a deterrent. And so I think that was the right move to allow law enforcement to be able to park in their driveways if they have an HOA.
Okay, now I think this other piece, and I'm gonna skip a little bit. This other piece, I think there needs to be a community education about this law going into effect, because I can easily see where a level of, I'm gonna use the word ignorance, can get folk unnecessarily finding themselves having to place a bond, and that is videoing of law enforcement, and in them doing their duty. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, so, basically what has happened is up until this point, if you see law enforcement doing something, you can basically stand right there and be, shoulder to shoulder with them, videotaping what's taking place. And a law now says that if you're videotaping, and probably if there is, an active arrest or something taking place, that you have to be at least 25 feet away from the officer. And so now individuals cannot be right there videotaping and things of that nature. And that's, I got to see how this is going to play out. I think that if there's just an officer and a person at 25 feet, you can see whatever you need to see. But what happens if the officers form a human shield around what's taking place? Then you still can't really see, or whatever the case may be. So it's going to be interesting to see, how this plays out, and if it really and truly affects, how law enforcement interacts, or how they're being recorded in communities when things happen.
But and then what I anticipate, there's going to be an increase